The storytelling that thrives for a long time in the milieu of work, the rural, the maritime, and the urban, is itself an artisan form of communication, as it were. It does not aim to convey the pure essence of the thing, like information or a report. It sinks the thing into the life of the storyteller, in order to bring it out of him again. Thus, traces of the storyteller cling to the story the way the handprints of the potter cling to the clay vessel. Storytellers tend to begin their story with a presentation of the circumstances in which they themselves have learned what is to follow, unless they simply pass it off as their own experience. Leskov begins his deception with the description of a train trip on which he supposedly heard from a fellow passenger the events which he then goes on to relate. Or he thinks of Dostoevsky's funeral, where he sets his acquaintance with the heroine of his story apropos of the Kreutzer Sonata, or he evokes a gathering of a reading circle in which we are told the events that he reproduces for us in his Interesting Men. Thus his tracks are frequently evident in his narratives, if not as those of the one who experienced it, then as those of the one who reports it. This craftsmanship, this storytelling, was actually regarded as a craft by Leskov himself. Writing, he says in one of his letters, is to me no liberal art, but a craft. It cannot come as a surprise that he felt bonds with craftsmanship, but faced industrial technology as a stranger. Tolstoy, who must have understood this, occasionally touches this nerve of Leskov's storytelling talent when he calls him the first man who pointed out the inadequacy of economic progress. It is strange that Dostoevsky is so widely read. But I simply cannot comprehend why Leskov is not read. He is a truthful writer. In his artful and high-spirited story, The Steel Flea, which is midway between legend and farce, Leskov glorifies native craftsmanship through the silversmiths of Tula. Their masterpiece, The Steel Flea, is seen by Peter the Great and convinces him that the Russians need not be ashamed before the English. The intellectual picture of the atmosphere of craftsmanship from which the storyteller comes has perhaps never been sketched in such a significant way as by Paul Valéry. He speaks of the perfect things in nature, flawless pearls, full-bodied, matured wines, truly developed creatures, and calls them the precious product of a long chain of causes similar to one another. The accumulation of such causes has its temporal limit only at perfection. This patient process of nature, Valéry continues, was once imitated by men. Miniatures, ivory carvings, elaborated to the point of greatest perfection, stones that are perfect in polish and engraving, lacquer work, or paintings, in which a series of thin transparent layers are placed one on top of the other. All these products of sustained, sacrificing effort are vanishing, and the time is past in which time did not matter. Modern man no longer works at what cannot be abbreviated. In point of fact, he has succeeded in abbreviating even storytelling. We have witnessed the evolution of the short story, which has removed itself from oral tradition and no longer permits that slow piling one on top of the other of thin transparent layers, which constitutes the most appropriate pictures of the way in which the perfect narrative is revealed through the layers of a variety of retellings.